Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, DM Needom. Most of you guys know me as Donna, though. Today I have the pleasure of sitting down with the musical group Wonderly. They're based in Oregon. And I have members Ben and Jim sitting down to talk about their new record called Wolves. We also talk about their journey, their side projects, and so much more. I will say right off the bat, though, my camera, as lovely as it was, and I had this nice tight shot, well, it decided to blur like right after we started recording. So the camera gets switched in the middle of it. So, technical issues. And I am recording in Mercury retrograde for those who are in the know. So, anyway, audio's fine, show's fine. So I hope you tune in because it's a really interesting interview, including a German opera about a certain someone. So tune in. Hi, Jim. Hi, Ben. How are you doing today?
Hi there.
Hey,
Nice to see you, Donna Michelle.
Yes. Well,
doing
DM. Okay, so the whole deal with the DM thing was because I wrote my first book I wrote was from a male's point of view, and I didn't want anybody to know that it was a
Oh,
girl that wrote it.
oh wow, that's
cool.
cool.
And
Very
so
cool.
when men read it, they were like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds like a guy wrote it," and they were kind of surprised. So that's why. But then I really realized that DM is like direct message, and here goes the camera again.
Oh,
Oh boy, we're just gonna do this. There we go. Everybody can see this, and I'll
cool.
take this down, and there we go.
Just for a moment there, it was DM stood for detail missing from the
Oh,
video. Okay, very blurry.
perfect, very perfect. But yeah, but DM also stands for direct message.
Hmm.
Yes, it
So
does.
that was not the best thing to use my initials. Anyway, but we didn't come here to talk about that. We came here to talk about you guys. And
If we must.
yes, we must because nobody wants to hear about me. So let's talk about wolves right off the bat. Let's just go right there.
Our
What was the,
record.
yes,
Yay.
yes. What was your inspiration for it?
Well, we always are constantly making music
Mm-hmm.
for one reason or another, usually to just please ourselves. And most of it doesn't get released into the world. Because we get together twice a week at least and sit around and make music. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's classical music, sometimes it's punk music, sometimes
Mhm.
it's funk music. And whenever we have a batch of creations that seem like they might be cohesive, we say, "Oh, well, this might be an album," and we
Hmm.
release it. And we had a bunch of songs in which the usually unreliable narrator types are struggling with a moral dilemma or remembering an event that involved,
Yeah,
like a breakup or
exactly.
things like that.
Offering their perspective on it, which may or may not really be the real thing that happened.
Yeah, yeah. And our previous album was called Story We Tell, but that was more about stories that we felt needed to be told
Yeah.
from a certain perspective. But this one's more about like, well, you've got there's a duality in each of us.
Hmm.
And we sort of, I don't know, we get philosophical about it in a way that maybe only makes sense to us, but we love to talk about, in which there's two wolves that you feed. And as
Yes.
the classic tale goes, you tell it
Yes.
better than I do.
You want me to tell
Yeah,
it?
you
Yes.
tell the
The
short,
idea, the idea
short
that
version of the,
inside you there are two wolves, and one is love and one is hate, and then the one that you feed becomes you. But this idea that there are two wolves inside of each of us, which in a kind of weird meta way, it's been attributed to all sorts of folklore. All sorts of Aboriginal cultures, Native cultures, everything. There's absolutely no basis for it existing before the internet. That particular
really?
fable, yeah, yeah.
So,
So
so it's not an old like
no,
Native American
it's
fable or
not.
something?
It's an example of fake lore, which is again
Oh, I love it. It's even better.
another unreliable narrator on top of all of the other unreliable
Okay, the
narrators.
Narrators.
narrator being, in this case, all of us. Huh.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's what inspired the title, and
Yeah.
that's where most of the songs kind of fit into that
Mhm.
world.
Well, and then it goes back to the niche of our shadow side. We have our
Mhm.
whole
There's
shadow
that.
side. So that's a real big buzzword lately too, is people talk about their
Yes.
shadow side and integrating your shadow side.
Mhm.
So it works. It's very
Who
timely.
knows what evil lurks in the hearts of all of us?
The
This is
shadow.
true, the
The
duality of
shadow
men.
knows.
Yes.
So, but then you also on this record you've included a holiday song, and I was reading the PR release, and you were talking about how Christmas does not necessarily work for everybody, or the holidays do not work for everybody.
That's for sure.
And and this is a true statement. It's a true statement because I'm one of those people that it doesn't work for me anymore.
Hmm.
Christmas is carnage, as the
Hmm.
duck says. The duck in Babe says.
Oh my
I
God.
mean,
Is that what the duck says?
Oh, it's one of my favorite
Oh, I
lines.
love that. I
Chris,
need to watch
you know,
Babe again.
the duck is riffing about the death of
Mhm.
another poultry, and it's Christmas is carnage. Christmas is carnage. But it's also a joyful time of the year when people tend to exhibit signs of gentleness towards each other, which is lovely. And there's a community basis to it and a gathering.
Mhm.
And I think in the song, we were riffing, sadly, in our seasonal depression disorder
A
mode,
thing up
one
here in Portland.
thing we get here. And we were sort of sadly thinking about beautiful little visions that happen during Christmas. And oh, there's a person being kind. Oh, it must be Christmas,
Right.
which is kind of a dry, dark,
Once a year.
dark thing.
It is.
But at the same time, the
Yeah.
song in our duality thing, it celebrates that because,
Yeah.
I mean, why
The,
not? People are being nice to each other and charitable.
the
right.
exactly the light and the darkness, like it's a dark time of year, like literally and figuratively, and to be able to have some sort of a lightness and a beauty come out of that is I mean that's why we celebrate around this time of year. And so that we've always been drawn to these kind of dark Christmas and holiday carols, like these old like French like Noels. They're always in a minor key, they're always a little bit brooding, and I think it's because you're paying homage to the fact that this is really happening. So there's an empathy there, but then there's also this light to it, because of course it's celebratory as well.
Well, and
Even if
it, go ahead.
performative.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I would say even if
Even
it's
if it's performative.
performative, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I think, what you say about Christmas as far as, yes, there is the kindness of people. There are people that are more genuinely kind. And if you would see them any other time of the year, they would be, get out of my face. I don't need you. I don't want you, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But then you also have the darker side of Christmas, like, which we didn't have really that much of this year because everybody shops on the internet now, but the Black
Yes.
Friday
Oh God.
craziness,
Yeah. Right.
talk
Yeah.
about darkness, where
Yeah.
people really aren't helping each other. They're just scavengers and savage about wanting a TV.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we've
Why
kind
doesn't you mentioned that Christmas doesn't work for you? What about it is most, yeah.
This was posed to me recently because my friend loves, one of my best friends loves Christmas. She is all about Christmas. And at one point in my life, I had 23 tubs of Christmas decorations. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. A
Yeah.
lot.
But we never really decorated, my late husband and I. We never really decorated that often. And when my friend asked me about Christmas, I'm like, what is Christmas really? It's about family. And yes, you mentioned the pressure cooker of family. My dad lives in New Orleans. I am not going down to see him. Christmas was great when I had kids because you have the joy of Christmas with children. That is the most wonderful thing. And I did do something nice for a person, for the giving tree. I did that, and I'm not asking for, that was something that I did because I wanted to make somebody else's Christmas better. But overall, Christmas is just a feeding frenzy of commercialism now, and that's the craziness about it. I mean, so, there's Yule, there's Kwanzaa, there's so many other holidays wrapped up in the holidays, but we focus so much on Christmas, and then Christmas has kind of lost its meaning for what it used to mean. Now, granted, I love Santa and I love the idea of Santa,
Cool,
but
dude.
now it's just all about gimme, 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 gimme. What are you getting me? How much are you spending on me? And let's all just put ourselves deeper in debt instead of just enjoying each other.
Right. Very true.
My daughter did a Christmas list that her mother then distributed to the extended family, and I was like, no, this is not. We have slightly different philosophies about this. Her mother and I were best friends,
Hmm.
but I was against the distribution of a Christmas want list by a 15-year-old. It just felt like it fed into everything you just mentioned. The frenzy of commercialism that doesn't necessarily help. The type of commercialism that doesn't help our society. I'm not a spend nothing guy. I mean, I
No,
think
and that's not my point either. It's like, but my friend has a 10-year-old niece who she gives out a list that she wants stuff from Sephora that is like really super expensive. And I'm like, I remember, asking for a Simon or a Merlin computer game. Yes, I'm aging myself. And that was a big deal if I got it.
Oh, I had both. I've
Mm.
spent way too much
Yeah.
time with both of those.
Oh,
Yes. But that was something that entertained you. It wasn't something that was creating this image that you're buying into at 10 years old. You're trying to create a persona. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But the commercialization of Christmas has kind of done that because, oh, well, wait, my decorations. Oh, wait, look at him across the street. I got to decorate even better
Mm.
mm.
because it's a competition. It becomes a competition of what am I going to give you? Am I going to give you a better gift than this? That's why Christmas has kind of lost its
Yeah,
magic.
I'm not
yeah.
getting you anything for Christmas this year.
I don't think.
Let's not get.
Let's
Let's not.
not. I don't want anything
I
for
don't want to
Christmas.
try to
I
one
didn't.
up
Hey,
you.
dudes,
I
I
know,
didn't
right?
mean to harsh your mellow. I'm not trying to
No,
harsh
no, no.
anybody's mellow about
It's just something that
Christmas.
occurred to me. I was like looking for one for Ben, and then everybody texts, well, what if I get him something that's
Mm.
like this, but he gives me something that's like this, but and then or the opposite, and everybody thinks about and worries about these things.
Hmm.
I'd like us to have a non-commercial Christmas.
I would love for that too.
I'll tell you what. I'll
Yeah.
come sing in your show,
Okay, and I'll come
and
and sing in your show.
this is our gift to
This
each
is
other.
my
Yeah.
gift of the
Uh,
music magi right
yes.
here.
I mean, there was a Christmas where I couldn't afford anything, so I made picture frames for everybody, and that was back in my 20s. And there was a time when my husband and I couldn't afford much, and it was like, all right, well, here's a list of what I want. There's CDs that were from the 80s he had, and he's like, I can't find them anymore. So if you get them used, that's fine to me too. It didn't,
Mm.
it was something that meant something, and that's the
Yeah,
thing. Even if it's music or a piece of art or something that is not creating this image, do it from the
There's
exactly.
so much
heart.
good music that's not
Mm.
streaming anymore. That's actually a
Oh
really good
gosh.
idea. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
I
flicked through
mean,
the for you. I found this XTC album that's not
yes.
streaming.
Yes.
That is cool, but
Yes.
but I mean the commercialism. It's just sad in this culture that has become the way. 'Cause I actually feel so. I'm Mr. Brightside on some of this stuff. Like I think that there is still the intention of Christmas and having a holiday around this time is still really, really valid. And I think people actually in some kind of a primal way still get it. It's just that we express it right now through consumerism. We express it through gifts and money and these things when really what we should be doing is getting together and making each other feel better around this time of year. That's the whole point of having a celebration around this time of year, I think.
And I agree with that. And the problem lies now, and this goes back to you writing the song for the podcast back in 2017, is we are now back into a reflective time of that error and the tension between family members of their political beliefs and whatever else they believe. And how happy are we going to have because we have to step on eggshells? And how many people do you know that are like, oh my God, I don't want to have to go over there for the holidays. I don't want to have to deal with them. And yes, why I'm not going to New Orleans is because I don't want to deal with my father because we are two different people. And I just, no.
Tough.
Mm.
It's very tough. I've had a lot
Hmm.
of family time lately because my parents are both having some health issues, and it's hard to hear the words that come out of their mouths sometimes.
Hmm.
They're in the cult and
Yes.
misinformed by a media that doesn't have any sort of um, jurisdictional boundaries. It just sort of anything that'll get clicks, anything.
But that's our society that goes back to the consumerism because our society is all about clicks. It's all about clickbait. It's all about let's get your attention.
Mm.
And how do you make that happen? And as a musician, while you have more opportunities because you can go put it on any streaming platform, you don't have to have a record label, you can do this. You also have to be hustling your ass off, excuse my French, to get things done.
Hmm.
Yeah, the musicians do need, if you're going to live the life and have no other job, you have to be multifaceted and you have to be a salesperson, which is kind of a bummer because that's not, I doubt if Mozart and Beethoven were per se salespeople. And I mean, there's some good sides to that.
Mhm.
And we love certain aspects of that, like especially the diversification aspect. We both have a lot of irons in the fire and it broadens our community and it makes it so that we have a more diverse friend group and colleague group when it comes to doing any particular project. If we were, if every download gave us $1 and we were just rolling in cash, and it would be a self-perpetuating golden handcuff situation where, oh wow, well, let's release another song like that, or let's work with that producer again, or whatever.
Right.
But we just kind of get to do our own thing, and that it's the positive side of the long tail and of the low wage situation.
Hmm.
Positive side is that musicians are they're a set of problem solvers, and they are necessarily talented, uh, but it may not be always doing one thing or the they have to have many skills, which I love. And it's one of my favorite things about people is when somebody can turn around and an opera singer can then go pound together a piece of furniture or carve a sculpture or something, whatever else that they do for a living.
Yep.
Well, I think that's the joy of being a creative is because, yeah, you have all those talents. You have the ability to be able to do one thing and then turn around and do something else. I mean, your activism helping venues stay afloat, after the pandemic, that's something I'm not sure that you ever thought you could do, is it? I mean, did you
No,
see
no, I
yourself
had
as
no
I'm going to be a champion and I'm going to be able to do this?
No, and I didn't see that coming. It turned out that I was good at talking about it with politicians, and they listened to me. And like, if you just did one thing, and I think both Ben and I have been there. You're on tour, and you get into this repetitive loop of doing one thing, and people are depending on you to do that one thing. Play these 10 songs in this room in this town, and then go to the next town and do those 10 songs and go to the next town. Then your life becomes really single faceted, and it's not as interesting anymore. So I love being able to be scrappy. And I've got children that I have to feed. So I mean, I don't think I'm saying that from a place of privilege. I try to recognize where I do come from a place of privilege for sure, but the ability to show my kids how to be scrappy is my favorite part of what we do.
Yeah, totally.
Like, yeah, we're gonna have a show tonight, but Dad has to go unplug the toilets at one of the venues today because nobody else is able to unplug the toilets quite like Dad. But then tonight, Dad will sing in front of several hundred people and with Ben, and they see that and they realize that there's no such thing as, and there shouldn't be such a thing as a rock star anymore. That's a bloated thing of the past, I think. And people who are lucky enough to shine in that Taylor Swift light, the ones who are best at it, like Taylor Swift, Paul McCartney, Beyonce, they know that there are many other skills that are going to come in handy down the line as they manage their lives. Otherwise, they just disappear into a puff of smoke when their moment in the spotlight is over.
Well, and then there's a whole other cavalcade that comes with that. The responsibility of feeding all these other people and taking care of all these other people that are on your tour, that produce you, your lawyers, your accountant, and then trying to walk the straight and narrow and not fall trap to the paparazzi or the media slamming you or catching you
Ego.
doing something. And yes, your ego, 100%. And that's the thing. It's like your daughters are not looking at you going, well, Dad's this rock star and he's going to go do this. No, Dad's going to go do this and then he's going to go sing and then he'll come back home. It's not the whole, we're going to go riding around in a limousine that used to
Limos
be.
are really not all they're cracked up to be.
No, they're not.
The little shit tubes.
They're not great. I mean, there was this whole in the 80s there were just this whole thing about riding in a limo. It was the greatest thing. No, not really. It's not
Yeah.
status. It's not.
No. It's a long car. Why?
Oh, and then let's take it to the Hummer. The Hummer.
Oh yeah. Also, why?
A little easier to get in and out of a Hummer, but you still don't get to decide where. If chances are, if you're in a limo, you're not exploring the world and calling the shots. You're just in. You're like a prisoner.
Mhm.
You have to go over here to do this thing, and you better arrive in style. And oh my God, are you dressed right? And there's just it does not bring happiness. That's for sure. We like looking the way we look.
Yeah.
Which is a good lead into a song that you wrote for your current record, Starfucker.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Was there some history that made you think about this, or was it just?
It might be based on a true story. No, it's kind of about an amalgam of people that I've known over the years who I would classify as narcissistic personalities. And my experience with them, because I was always on the other end of that, like moth to flame type sort of thing, and that's how people like that operate in the world. So the song was just about kind of processing my my experience of that, while also like hopefully getting a little bit of a zinger in, while also acknowledging again that it really does take two to tango.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
I will speak to the song, although this is Ben's song.
Love
Ben is a very talented choir director,
Oh.
and has this Low Bar Chorale thing, which is really cool, and it's an all inclusive, all easily accessible way to get a lot of people singing together, and that's awesome.
Mhm.
And in his talent, the flame was Ben, and then but there are, and I continue to see a lot of sycophantic people who try to harness it for their own egos. And instead of doing it as Ben envisioned it, which is, hey, we're all going to sing together here, sometimes when there's a bunch of people singing in a room, the natural urge for a less healthy ego is to say, hey, let's make this all about me. Let's focus on the numbers. Let's make it about money. Or how can we repeat this in a way that I can brand it and make it my thing? And I think that's what Ben's the moth to flame is that there's just a lot of moths.
Yeah.
And some of them are just looking for other moths to have sex with, which is fine. The moths who are coming to the flame to find other moths, yes, that's great. But if it's a moth coming to the flame to etch away at its purity or etch away at and turn something beautiful into more this Christmas commerce kind of BS, I think that for me that's what Starfucker's about.
All right.
Right.
I love that interpretation.
You just don't want it to be all about
yeah,
me.
pretty much on. Yeah.
So, I mean that's a different. I kind of assumed it was about people that were kind of coming to get to know you,
Uh,
for who you are.
Yeah, well, it's about like I mean, that's one of the things is when the mask drops, when the person reveals themselves, it's like that. It's kind of that moment, and talking about that.
You mean did you mean to when you said that? Do you mean for who you are because of who you are? You're the person with the microphone. You're the person.
Yes,
Well,
yes, yes.
not for who you truly are.
Oh,
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I mean, I've watched people in bands, and I've been around people, and I've been in a band, and it's
Mhm.
amazing how when you get up on that stage, or if you're in a meeting greeting at signing books, anything like that,
Mhm.
people suddenly had this whole different demeanor towards you.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't look at you as a real person. They look at you as, oh my God, I'm so excited.
You're a commodity. Yeah.
I mean, I've met my idols, and it's like I have never once gotten their face was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's just whatever. I mean, they're
Yeah.
people. Guess what? They take a shit just like you do.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
sorry for the cursing. That's my
No,
mouth.
no, I love it.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, the song literally has a swear in it, so
Mhm.
idol. It's a
Entitled.
titularly naughty.
Yeah, yeah.
We used to have a word for people who would get in our faces after a show in
Oh
my
yeah, I like
old
this one.
band.
It's good.
Folks were called geysers because you cannot stand in front of a geyser like Old Faithful and because you're going to get your face boiled off by hot scalding water and steam. But folks come up to you after a show, and instead of just hanging out and saying, "Hey, how you doing? What do you want to do?" They say, you guys are this, you guys are this, you guys are this, you guys are this, and they just go at you with a fusillade of their own experience because they're so excited, and they're not doing it because of they're bad people or anything like that. It's just it's a difficult. It's what the system ends up doing when you get off stage, as you've probably experienced, and you get out there. If you're signing books, like you said, or if you get off stage, I've seen we did a tour opening for Willie Nelson. Nobody gets it as bad as him because the guy is a statue of solace. He is so peaceful. So that makes people really open up in front of him, and they just go, "You're this, you this, you're in 1961 to do my parents fucked your music and blah 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 blah." And he's like, "Yeah." Yeah. I don't think he enjoys it, but he just lets it happen. But for me, it was like, okay, I need to breathe. I need to breathe now.
I mean, well,
So.
that's the one thing nobody really looks at is the energy. We are all energy, and it's an energy transaction. And when someone is just coming at you and you're not prepared, that's just.
And again, I'm not complaining because
Oh, I know.
I love that people get excited and that they experience something during the show. But the problem is the system is set up that, and this happens with the Low Bar and happens with Wonderly, where we're all going to experience this together. But they have a paradigm where this thing is meant to be experienced as a like America's Got Talent rock star on stage, where all the lights are shining on them, and it's not. That's what music's not about. So that's why most of the stuff we make, and our biggest thrill is in finding a chord or a harmony or a transition, and really that's where we get off.
Oh yeah.
And I've at least found that the what feeds me energy wise is not to be on stage and have the spotlight on me and have adulation at all. And I don't say that I'm not bragging here, but I don't feed off of that. That's not where I find my energy. I find my energy in like creating with Ben, and we both create with other people too. And that's part of what makes our this is partnership so special, is that he goes off and will produce a record for somebody, and I'll go off and produce a record for somebody, or we work with different groups and then we come back together and like, wow, this happened.
Yeah.
There's a version of that we do that's like this.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why we work so well together, is because we both love that creative process. We love creating stuff with each other so much. It's like the best thing.
Well, and going
the Beatles have gotten back together.
Well, they did get back together for that song recently that they.
Oh yeah.
Well, I love it. I love Now and Then.
It is, but I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like,
when you hear that those are the words, the last words that John Lennon said to Paul, I was like, oh no,
didn't know that.
Yeah, Paul went to visit John at the Dakota, and they did frequently, unpublicized things because they didn't want to have the Starfuckers around. And Paul said, well, I hope it's not as long between now and our next visit as it was between now and our last visit, which had only been like 6 months or something. And John said, well, now and then, or some version of, think of me now and then, and I will see you now and then, whenever. And those were the last words. So that's why Paul saved this one, apparently. At least that's the story. That's the apocryphal version.
Well, it's a nice story, and that's the thing. We don't when with the media, we're going to go back to that real quick, and that's a great story. But with the media, you never know what is being created. I once talked to a fan of a band, and she was like, well, the band would never lie to us. And I'm just like, really? Okay, if you would have believed that. I mean, I've talked to people on The Voice, and they've told me that they want to create a whole narrative of who you are. And I don't, and that's once again, we're commercializing, commodifying a person to be a brand. And I think that's what's really weird about us today now, because you have to have your own brand. Why? Why can't we just be us?
Well, because if you don't have a brand, if you're like us, we're sort of a publicist's nightmare. Because you got to, just thinking in terms of that, they have to sell something to somebody to help us make a living.
Right.
But what exactly do you say about this? I mean, this is a tough one.
I mean, look at this mess.
We're all over the map. I'm writing a German opera. He's
incredible,
conducting choirs. Tell her about the All Voices.
Oh, Voices Unlimited. So yeah, I've been a choir director like my entire life.
It's one of my favorite things.
And one of the choirs that I direct is a group for people with developmental disabilities and neurodiversity. It's been going for like 13 years. We have about 60 students involved in it. We're getting ready to do a Christmas show this weekend.
They do a musical every year.
That's true. We do a musical every year.
And it's so good. It's very moving to see these adults with developmental disabilities singing and being a part of something that they normally don't get to be included in because of standards of performance and things like that. But it's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, like the coolest thing about it to me is just the community that forms with them, and like the network of caretakers, and it's a whole community, and it's a group of people doing this simply because they love it. Again, it's like it's art for art's sake, they're not
gonna they don't have any illusions about becoming stars in the field, or
they don't care about that at all.
They love the art. They love the art, and they love the community.
But that's a gift, because you're including people that would not have that opportunity and are sometimes looked down upon. So you're giving this beautiful, amazing gift to these people, and to the caregivers. Yeah, because I was a caregiver for a bit, so I understand.
Cool.
I mean, I was a caregiver for my husband.
Oh yeah,
who was dying. So it's like no matter what role you play as a caregiver, whether it's taking care of a kid, somebody with a developmental disability, or even a dying loved one.
Mhm.
they still need that support. So you're also giving
Yeah.
them that support in a community build. Because I
Yeah.
met some friends while my husband was in dialysis
Mm.
because there was caregivers there in the lobby while waiting, and I got to talk to them. So you build a community that way. So that's a gift, a real big gift.
Well, I mean, it's a gift to me to be on the receiving end of the sound of these people singing, and I don't know. I also feel like it's kind of, in a way, I've always felt a responsibility to just, to help. Like everybody's got something, everybody's got some kind of ability or disability or neurodiversity or whatever. We're all on a spectrum. The more we can look out for each other, the better.
Instead of just going, here's some pills, go take
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Good
Yeah,
luck with
go
that.
be peaceful in the corner somewhere. Well, but all of this said, like aside from these side projects, like one thing that
Mhm.
we're not very good at, but is trumpeting our own ability to hold the space of a stage in the spotlight. So like when he and I take the stage
Yeah.
and we dress up and we're at our finest and we hit a harmony, you might as well have every spotlight in the world shining on us because we will make the audience feel elated in that way. So it's sort of like
Mhm.
we live in both extremes. Like
Yeah.
we are capable of being when a rock star is needed, we're capable of being a rock star.
Yeah.
And standing there and letting and leading the energy
Mhm.
of the
Exactly.
moment and
Exactly.
letting everybody else
Yeah.
just be like, oh, and
Right.
so that we can do
We can do
it,
that too.
but it's not. I don't think it's what ultimately feeds us. And we also know that as 40 and 50 something dudes, it's not a sustainable thing. We don't want to repeat that every night and have to repeat that every night because when your name is on the marquee and the spotlight is on you, you also have to make sure that you're selling X number of tickets
Mhm.
and producing X number of listens and streams and blah blah blah. And we just don't feed off of that.
Mm.
We want to. I mean, like you probably don't march over to ABC Studios to try to market your podcasts every week. It sure would be nice if somebody noticed it. If the Guardian wrote it up and said, "Oh, she's amazing. This podcast is a must listen." Yeah, you'd appreciate that, but you're not like trying to be a rock star. Joe Rogan kind of thing by having
No.
A-list guests. No, you want to have good conversations. I can tell because you're so
Mhm.
great to talk to,
Yeah.
and that's what we are with music.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is the thing. It's like the thing about that is, yeah, I could sit here and chase after those numbers, chase after the downloads and everything. But the
Mhm.
fact is, and I know this from one of my friend's daughters who had her video on TikTok went viral.
Oh.
And her next video had like 200 hits. And
Mm.
she got depressed. And
Oh.
it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
so you're looking for that outside validation. As long as I have, the funniest thing is, I know that I have at least two listeners in Germany that listen to every podcast episode I've ever done. And
That
when
is
I,
enough. That is enough.
and
You
when
do
I,
not
t
need more.
and when I
Hello,
took,
Germany.
Hey, Germany.
and when I took a break, the last episode I had done, you could see that they were still going back and checking to see if it was more.
Mm.
So I'm fine with that. And it's the same thing with writing. I'm not going to be a bestseller. I may, but I'm not chasing it. I'm
You're
not
writing
looking
for
for a
you
book deal. Exactly.
and for two people in
Yeah.
Germany. Can
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
say something for the Germans?
Sure.
Oh, good.
Oh, what
I
were you
help.
going to say?
I was
Oh,
just going to talk about your opera.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
oh,
we were
yeah.
going to go there, but go talk, say something to the Germans. Go ahead.
Ah.
This is for the Germans. So I'm in the middle of writing an opera, and Ben's going to submit a piece for it as well. But
Yeah.
it's all in the words of a certain tyrant on the rise, and some of the things that he said. It was originally written as a commission with the local symphony here to write a seasonal piece, but I pretended to misread the assignment and I wrote it as election season as opposed to Christmas season, and it has things in it like. Det har ni ein sehr starker Mann. Das Volk durch sich, wenn antritt. The tyrant is a strong man. The people salute when he enters. And then Währenddessen fressen sie die Haustier. They're eating the pets. Um, but ich fahre die Rolltreppe runter. Heute steigen wir in die Höhle hinab. Ich werde die ganze Welt in the Mushi packen. I'm coming down the escalator. I'm going to grab the world by the pussy. Mushi packen, mushi packen. By the pussy, by the pussy.
Oh my
And it
God.
goes on from there. So that's for your German friends.
Yeah.
Terrible pronunciation. I apologize but it's meant to be bad pronunciation because it's sung by this wannabe German tyrant who is a man on the rise in America who really looks up to the German tyrant.
What's interesting about what you're saying here? I was reading something yesterday about how in 1998 somebody said that there was going to be a strongman to come in and persuade the middle class that their jobs were going to be taken and that there was corrupt people in politics. And I'm paraphrasing all of this, and that he was going to rise to power because they felt that their world was going to be condemned and that this strongman was going to show us all the evils of the world.
Who was this 1998
I'd have it.
seeker?
I'd have to look it up on my phone. I will do that after we are off air. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like here it was predicted, and
Yeah, history is easily forgotten.
Yeah, and easily repeated.
yes, and that's the thing. I think that I can't believe that we don't realize that history repeats itself over and over again,
It does.
just with different players. But I like your German opera. It seems amusing and it
Oh,
seems fun.
It's
I'm
fun.
so stoked.
I'll send you. I can send you the first piece, which is completely recorded with the symphony and the opera singers in there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. You're working with like Oregon Symphony people on this, right?
Yeah, they're all Oregon Symphony, and then a couple from the Portland Opera that have been very helpful in guiding me, making sure my score, because I haven't written a whole lot of scores. He has, but I score writing for symphony groups is kind of new to me, and it's my biggest love and challenge right now.
Mm.
Which brings us to the fact that you guys have done a couple of independent film songs.
Yeah. Well, a number of soundtracks, yeah.
Yeah. So how did that come about?
Uh, how did it come about? Like
The first thing we scored was my podcast that I do with my
right.
daughters, and
Okay.
somebody took note of it. This podcast ended up being really popular, and it was featured in the Guardian and the New York Times and stuff. So the New York Times people said, "Hey, why don't you write a song for our podcast?" In a nutshell, Dear Sugar was the next thing that we did together,
Right,
and that was
right,
the first
right.
thing. The Dear Sugar podcast, and they had a Nina Simone song they'd been using, and in the early days of podcasts, anything went, so they could just they were taking songs off albums,
Mhm.
and they were using a Nina Simone song, and I guess Nina Simone's estate said no thank you, we'd like you not to do that, and they came to us and said, hey, can you imitate this? And, sure, we'll try being Nina Simone for a day, and we found a great gospel singer, Liz Weiss,
Yeah.
and recorded that, and we kind of nailed it. And then so for the first several years of the New York Times doing their podcast, they would call us and we would do the still processing theme, the daily theme, things like that.
Yeah.
But then longer form stuff came along where, hey, I'm making a gay horror film.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we'd like you guys to
Ramon
score it.
and
Yeah.
Mike, yeah,
And so
totally.
we would score full length features,
Yep.
deep learning curve to,
Yeah.
score to picture.
Jump scares and like
And
all
all that
sorts of
stuff.
Yeah. It
But
was really fun.
that's kind of where it was born. And now we get to be a little bit more choosy about the work that comes along. I mean, that was all great work,
We loved it. Yeah.
but we get to do stuff that's to our liking and in our wheelhouse for scoring films for whoever needs music for their film.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I want to talk to you a little bit about My Damn Self.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that?
That's a song of mine, and it started off as a totally different set of lyrics, but it wasn't quite working because I think that the chord progression on that is the way the music and melody are. It's kind of acidic, and it's doubting somebody's motives. But the original words were what was that one called originally? It was
You know me.
"You Know Me."
Yeah.
And it was like, thank you so much. You know me so well. You really see me to a person, a lover. But it ended up being, damn, you know me better than I know myself. And it's sort of like, that's why this can't work. 'Cause you see the bullshit that I'm capable of putting out there in the world, and that's why we're not gonna that's why we're not gonna work. Could be both because I can't stand the fact that you can see the real me, and because you can't stand the real me that you're seeing. So, but we're best friends now, best friends.
Clearly.
And it's a happy ending, but that's all. That's probably much all I should say about that song.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I listened to your record this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So now, yeah, you have a couple more streams. And then I went into the second one, and then, yeah, everything started going chaos around here. But, whatever. That's life. So I also listened to It Was Written That Way. And do you guys like to have Do you like just working on musical pieces with no vocals, the
Yeah,
instrumentals?
sometimes, yeah. That was originally for a film,
Hmm.
and it only had a verse because it was meant to be an intro piece for this great film that we did called Strictly for the Birds, and it's the opening piece of the song. But the whole film, that song was for a film, and the lead characters are these septuagenarian couple, one of whom is trans, male to female, and didn't go for the transition until he was in his 60s.
I think so.
And
Maybe.
now
Yeah.
she is a lovely woman who was involved in the making of the film, and so we wanted to really hit it hard on the idea that if there's something inside of you that just has to be said. I'm
Hmm.
quoting the lyrics in the song, like a songbird
Burning.
burning, not singing, but burning in the
Yeah.
back of your head. And so the idea with that one is that it had this verse that just summed up the whole film for us.
Hmm.
And then it just kind of played out for a couple minutes. But we loved it so much we wanted to finish the song. So we finished the song and got permission from the film folks to take part of the original music and add a bridge that just expands on the theme. The bridge is you don't have to take what they gave you, turn it into something that you love. You don't have to hide the truth that makes you different. You've hit it enough. And so that's the idea about that song.
Yeah.
And we riffed for that song. We riffed together as we were watching the film, thinking, what's the vibe of the scene? The scene opens on a motorcycle through an open field. The film opens, and you wonder how is it that this person is going to end up on a motorcycle going through an open field? What are they doing? And I won't spoil the film, but it's pivotal that they're just living their own free life now as a woman, and it's a great story.
It's very cool. And one of the cool things about it is that the subject of the film plays herself.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And her wife plays herself in the movie. So it's like it's kind of breaking. I don't know which wall that is.
Yeah,
break, but it's one of them for sure.
At least punches a hole in the wall.
Yeah, it does.
You can peek through.
Actually,
That does. There's a movie, yeah, but not an angry punching of a hole in the wall.
No.
There's a lot of flashbacks to childhood, and it's a very empathetic look at a deep empathetic look at what it was like growing up in the wrong body, or with what some folks call sexual dysmorphia. Is that the word? Is that the term?
Is it gender dysmorphia?
Gender dysmorphia. Yeah.
And some folks I know who are trans object to that type of classification of the thing because they don't think of it in that way. But in any case, in the simplest terms, this kid, great actor playing the kid, is in the wrong body, and you follow the whole story through 6 decades until they wake up one day on an operating table and they're in the right body, and they say goodbye to the kid that was in the wrong body. This is a great moment.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd definitely check out the movie.
It is not it's not like a great movie like Steven Spielberg manipulating your emotions movie. It's almost like a documentary. It's a different film, and it's called Strictly for the Birds. We really love doing that one.
Yeah,
that was a while ago.
Yeah,
it sounds good. One thing I want to ask you too is reading on your bios, you talk about writing songs that are kind of character driven, that are kind of story driven. And do you take it from just your personal life experiences or what you observed? You create scenarios in your head for certain people, or, how does that work for you? What is your process with that?
Totally depends. I mean, I would say on Wolves, most of it is about us, in our personal stories. But obviously some like this, the
that
one
last song being the exception.
Yeah, an exception. But on our previous record, Story We Tell, those are all
somebody else's.
Those are all stories that we, researched. Like there's a story about D.B. Cooper. There's one, November 1971 is the story of D.B. Cooper.
Point for point, like every detail that we know about the D.B. Cooper thing.
It's kind of like the
everything we know is in that song.
The record of the Edmund Fitzgerald or something. It's like recounting the epic tale of D.B. Cooper. In great 70s production fashion.
And there's one called Balloon Bomb, or something like that. I think that's the name of it, but it's about the only casualty on U.S. soil as a result of World War II was many decades later when a church group was on a vacation or on an outing, and they found an old Japanese balloon bomb that had floated over and landed in the mountains and was an unexploded bomb, and a couple 5 kids died.
Yeah.
And so we have a song about that. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so that we just sort of anything that seems interesting.
The town of Bay Ocean
Yeah.
in Oregon, which is it was like an Atlantic City that existed on the West Coast. Essentially, it was like a gamblers and millionaires' paradise back in the late teens, early 20s. And because of some human error, in they built one jetty instead of two, along the coastline. It resulted in the erosion of the coastline.
Whole town washed away.
Whole town disappeared into the sea.
So that whole
Wow.
album story we tell to answer your question,
Yeah.
we give long answers.
We do.
That answer your question. We have a whole album based on us being history buffs and researching other people's stories.
Yeah.
But this album, Wolves, is about our own. I would say mostly it's about us looking in and seeing, embracing our both darkness and lighterness.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take it back, way back, because I want to ask you this. When and why did you start deciding to think, hey, I want to be a musician? And what was your first instrument?
Banjo.
Banjo?
Banjo.
No. And how old were you?
Maybe 9 years
Wow.
old. Pete Seeger, the concert,
wow.
concert for the children's concert at blah blah blah. My parents unknowingly exposed me to communism and the banjo when I went into their record collection.
That's amazing.
My parents, who are super far right Republican leaning people, although they will insist that they're not Republicans because the Republicans are too woke often for them. They had unknowingly this great communist icon, Pete Seeger. Wonderful. Like, I learned so much from this record. Songs like Erie Canal or Little Birdie, why do you fly so high? All these great little poetic odes to sharing and community. And that just hit home with me. And I got myself eventually found a long neck Pete Seeger banjo because he was a really lanky guy. So Gibson made a special banjo. I think it was Gibson that made it first. Mine's a Gibson that with 3 extra frets on it. So it's like almost a baritone guitar, only it's a banjo. And that's my favorite sit around the house plunky instrument.
I love that banjo. It's really cool.
And that's what started your journey.
I started when I like really young. I was like 3 years old, and I started taking Suzuki violin lessons. My folks got me involved in that. And this is before I could even play. Like, it was kind of like rhythm and dance classes and that kind of thing. And I played violin all like until I was about 13. And at 13 years old, I started playing the viola because my hands were big and I wasn't that great at violin. So, and I wanted to be in the orchestra. So, if you were big and you could play the viola, you kind of got into the orchestra. So I did that. And then I also took up acoustic bass that year. And I would say that's really when I started creating on musical instruments. Like, before then, it was kind of like I would just, play whatever was in front of me. But that's when I really started composing and writing and doing all the things that I do now. So,
and you played upright bass in New York as a jazz musician.
I did. Well, I tried. I attempted.
Everybody
It's
tried.
very, I quickly switched to other things. But
What about you, DM?
Me?
Yeah.
I picked up the bass when I was about 17 years old. My dad played organ when I was a little kid. They split, so I didn't get that influence. He never taught me. But I decided I wanted to learn how to play bass because I wanted to be a bass player and a big rock star.
And when you were in the band as the singer, were you the bass player and the singer?
Oh no, I was a backup singer when I was a singer. I was a backup singer in a band in Dallas, and we never really did anything. And then I was a bass player in a band in Shreveport. So yeah, we did a couple of things in Shreveport, and that was it. But I mean, I how do I say this? I was playing music for the wrong reasons. I like playing bass, and I never had a problem picking it up. And when I would go to lessons, I had a friend I would go to lessons with, and we would split an hour. It was supposed to be I get a half hour, she gets a half hour. I would end up with 15 minutes because I knew what I was doing, and she'd end up with the extra time, the 45 minutes. So it was like, and my teacher's like, you must have been practicing. And I was like, I practiced a couple of times. I got it down, and that was it. So it was not like this major, I need to do this. I enjoyed doing it, but I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And so I understand that. Do I still love my bass? Yes. And before my husband passed, there was a running joke that he never saw me play. So during the pandemic, John Taylor of Duran Duran played Rio. And I used to know how to play Rio. I knew the bass line. In fact, the guy at a bar in Dallas said he didn't know how to do it. So he walked over and I was friends with him. He's like, in this bar, he's like, here, show me how to play the bass solo in Rio. Okay, so here in this bar, I'm playing the solo for Rio. But so my husband's like, I've never seen you play. So he had a medical appointment. They took him. He comes back, and John Taylor had done this tutorial because I hadn't picked up the bass in like 15 years. So I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't played. So I watched, I rehoned my skill. I come home, and the funny thing is, during the tutorial, he's sitting there saying, "Yeah, people like play something." So he's like, "I play the solo in I play the solo in Rio," and people look at me and they go, "What the hell is that?" Okay, fine. So hubby comes home and I'm like, "All right, honey, I'm going to play for you." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I start playing, and he looks at me and goes, "What the hell is that?" And I'm like, oh, yes, I should have realized this. So I end up getting my phone and play with my phone, but he did not understand what I was playing. Yeah.
You mean because he wasn't familiar with the song?
Right. Well, he was familiar with the song somewhat, but it wasn't like something that he knew. And like it wasn't ingrained in his mind. It wasn't the
I don't think
80s.
I'm familiar. The Rio bass solo is not ingrained in my mind.
I know it.
It's
Yeah.
not easy.
I
That's
don't I can't hum it, but it's
bum
a
bum bum
really
bum bum
crazy.
bum 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 bum
Yeah,
bum 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 bum. Yeah.
there's like a bass break in there.
Huh.
You
Yeah.
have to, and you have to move your fingers. You are moving, just like New Religion. That's another song that they do that you have to move your fingers a lot. It's not just this dun dun dun. And I played in the band. I played some of the Beatles stuff, and
Mhm.
most of that was just eighth notes, and some of it was harder, but
Mhm.
most of it, you know. So that's my musical journey. I mean, it's not. So now I write about musicians. I don't. I'm not a musician anymore. I write about musicians. So.
Well, thanks
Well,
for
thank
having
you.
us on. I appreciate you listening to our record and telling folks
No,
about it.
no
Hopefully,
problem.
you listen to it about 9 million more times just to enjoy it.
I want to ask you though about the singing, the chorale. Are you doing a
Oh, Low
show?
Bar Chorale.
Yes, you do that twice a month, correct?
Usually twice a month. Yeah, yeah. In Portland, then I've taken it to Alaska. This last year we went up and played Salmon Fest in Alaska. We're going and doing a few dates in Australia next month, which is kind of crazy. We've kind of been all over the Pacific Northwest. We're about to do a big show in Revolution Hall, called Snow Bar Chorale, Low Bar Chorale, Snow Bar. It's
Nice.
bad pun. But anyway, and the show sold out. So I'm very excited to have. I think it's our biggest
Ticketed.
was that single night ticketed show that we've ever had. It's about I think 850 people are going to be singing together, which is
Well, you've had
exciting.
like thousands singing at Pioneer Square.
Yeah, but that was a free event.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's
It's
cool.
not about the money, man.
I know, I know, I know.
Yo, but the money makes it help. The money does help.
Makes so we can pay the musicians. But yeah, yeah. So anyway, no, it it's like one of my favorite things that I get to do. It kind of takes all of my choral direction and band leading and arrangement and just like kind of putting on a show type of skill and puts it all into one place. And I'm really lucky that I have incredible people like Jim and this band of all-star players, like people who play with like Brandy Carlisle and Eels and Nico Case. Like their backing players are my backing band
Nice.
for Low Bar Chorale, and everybody just loves singing together. They show up for each other. I teach them three-part harmony to pop songs. That's it.
Nice.
It's simple, but it's a lot of fun.
Do you guys plan on touring with Wolves at all?
A little bit, I
Yeah, a
think.
little bit. We're putting together something. I don't know if it's with Wolves, but as the duo,
Right.
we've toured a lot, but usually as an opening act, and so we're still philosophically deciding whether we want to do that or not.
Yeah.
Something there's probably going to be some East Coast special appearances that we can't announce yet in 2025. A couple of festival slots and a New York show. But we won't probably tour as a going concern as an ongoing touring band. But we'd love it if people got in touch with us and invited us to their living room sometime and if their living room is a concert hall, that's great.
Yep.
Or if we don't really care if we're playing a concert hall that holds 1,000 people or if we're playing somebody's kitchen that holds 10,
Yeah.
as long as it's a fun experience for us, because it's supposed to be fun. We've both
Yeah.
done our time. I was in a touring band on a major label that did 300 shows a year. Like I said, repeatedly, repeating the same set every night. I never want to do that again.
No,
And unfortunately, especially in this day and age, with costs being what they are, and the whole touring ecosystem being what it is, bands have to just go out there and slug it out and repeat it night after night after night after night. I feel okay about saying no thanks to that because I've done my time as a touring band. So we are going to get out there in the world, and we are happy to go out there in the world. We'd love to come to sing for you in your studio sometime.
Chicago,
Yeah, it's just like we're just not driven by the we don't want to be driven by the normal commerce of touring ecosystem. He's got a choir to run. I got venues to run and daughters to raise.
And
So.
wait, and you're forgetting the German opera. When is that coming out?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that's probably not going to be done until like the end of 2025. I'm debuting one piece of it with 6 cellos, clarinet, flute, and 3 opera singers next week on the 17th.
Yes.
At a 45th Parallel event. With 45th Parallel is the subset of the symphony that does more adventurous stuff, i.e., they're willing to play with hacks like me and Ben. So we're doing that just as a teaser, to kind of kick the project in the pants and see how the public responds to it. I mean, it's sung in German. The words of it were written by the mouth of a tyrant, so it's all quotes that with a little bit of empathy woven into it to try to say why. But I'm not even sure yet how we're going to do the translation. Like, are we going to offer it as a QR code on the program, or are we just going to tell people basically this is what these words mean? Because I don't want to be hitting people over the head with politics. I want them to enjoy the music and to feel some of the humor and the pathos of it. But it's many layers.
Well, I think that's the thing, though, is sometimes you don't have to understand the words for it to translate by the action and just the emotion.
That's the beauty of opera.
Hmm.
That, like, half the time I don't know what those Puccini operas are about. I mean, I know the story arc. I maybe know what the aria is about, but I just enjoy the hell out of hearing the orchestra and the singers.
So is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to cover?
Gosh, we talked about so many things.
So many things.
I'd love to talk with you again sometime. We could.
Yeah, me too.
That's fine. You are welcome back to anytime. So thank you for tuning in.
I don't think so. I think you've done a great job asking us about our record. We appreciate it. We worked really hard on it, and it's out there in the world. So I hope your listeners go check it out.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I had a great time talking to Jim and Ben, and I think that the conversation flowed easily. Was I expecting to really dive as deep as we did into the German opera? No, but I was amused as anything, and I hope you guys that are in Germany had a laugh. I think that their music, it's definitely something that speaks to your heart at times. And if you listen, each song is very diverse. Like I said on the podcast, I had listened to that record this morning, and there's a lot of diversity there because some songs will touch you in a way that makes you really think. And I think that's a gift when a song can make you stop and reflect. And as we talked about with, it's the duality of personality. And I don't know that we necessarily always face that. We don't want to face the darker sides of ourselves. But sometimes that's a good thing that we do because it helps heal, because sometimes those darker sides are from past traumas, past hurts, and sometimes it's not even our own. Sometimes it's the people that we were around. The interesting thing is they have said that you can pick up things from when you're in utero. And if that's the case, well, maybe when you are 6 months in there, maybe when your mom was upset or your dad got upset, maybe you're picking up all that energy. No one knows. We can only assume what happens. But that being said, that doesn't mean that you can't heal yourself and work through it. And sometimes songwriting or just writing, even in a journal, can be very healing and very cathartic. So today, if you find yourself struggling with with that shadow side of yourself, the side that doesn't like the way, you know, you said something or you thought about something or you want to change something or you want to say something to somebody but you can't get it out. Sit down with a pen and paper and do it. Just do it. That's the best way to get things done. And just keep plugging through. You know, we talked about Christmas, and yes, Christmas has become very commercial. And when my friend posed to me, she goes, "Well, what about, why is Christmas just another day?" And it's because it's family. And the thing about choosing your own family, and this is one thing we don't talk about a lot because it's like, well, you can choose your family. This is true. But sometimes your family that you've chosen has family, and that's okay. Because then you decide how you want to spend the day. And you can still spend it without all the commercial trappings. You can still fix dinner. You can still enjoy yourself. I think one thing that we didn't really say the exact word, we were talking more about the commercialism, but this also comes up with what I'm buying you better match what I'm buying. You know, you're buying me. It's the expectation of Christmas. What is expected of us? Are we supposed to have the perfect Christmas dinner? Are we supposed to have the perfect holiday? What is this Hallmark vision that has been presented to us? And I think we have to start from what makes us feel good. Being around the people that must make us feel good, doing the things that make us feel good, and giving when we can. And sometimes I know we can't give, we can't afford to give. And the thing that we don't think about is even if even if you have things that no longer serve you, maybe they're still in great condition. Maybe it's a jacket that you don't want anymore. Find a coat drive, give the coat to a coat drive. Find a charity. You know, there's a smaller charity that when I was going through my house, and I'm still going to go back and give them stuff, called Mercy House, that helps people that can't afford things. It's a smaller charity and it helps people that don't have anything. Because no matter what, if you have a roof over your head and you have food for yourself, then you come from privilege. And there's other people that don't have that and are grateful to have the smallest things. So truly, when you think about Christmas and the season of giving, it shouldn't be about the new toys. And granted, that's fun and it's great for kids. But the true meaning of Christmas is to be giving. And sometimes we have to give to those that are less fortunate. And check your charities to make sure that they're not misusing your money if you're going to give money. But find something local, find something that is going to support your community. And you can still do your big Christmas and you can still do your commercialism, but try to find somebody that's in need and help them. So, sorry for getting a little preachy, but it's Christmas after all. So I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. From everybody here at the Better Two podcast, which is just me in this room, and then Rich, the sound guy, will get it and he'll do what he has to do. We all wish you a very merry holiday season, however you choose to celebrate. If it's a big family bash or if it's a single alone time for yourself. We wish you a very happy holiday season. And I thank you for tuning in and listening. And, well, whenever you're listening, morning, noon, or night, we really do appreciate it. And anyway, I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.